morning, everybody. Hope you're having a great beginning to the day. It's quite interesting on this end. The kids, Levi went back to yeshiva in Baltimore. My Yisrael is in yeshiva in New Jersey. Mushki is studying in New York. Necha's going to New York after Shabbos. Eli started in the yeshiva. My other boys, Aaron and Moshe, started today. So there's Beryl starts tomorrow. So God willing, by the time Friday comes, there will be 9 children in school in person for the first time in 6 months. So it's quite an interesting time. I'm sure everyone's busy themselves. But I did want to say a Dvar Torah and a very powerful thought from this week's Torah portion. As I mentioned to you, the beginning of this week's Torah portion, the portion is called Ki Tavo, when you come to the land. And the beginning of the portion speaks about when the Jewish people came to the land of Israel. And what they had to do was, they would have to bring what's called bikurim, a gratitude to God. They would take the first fruit that ripened, that matured, if it was a pomegranate, if it was a date, if it was a fig, from the 5 special fruit that Israel was blessed with. And they would take the first, they would pluck it, and they would bring it and make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, where they would say a special prayer of gratitude to the Almighty for the happiness He has given them. And that deserves a talk of its own, and maybe we'll do it tomorrow about the idea of gratitude. But I wanted to touch on something very interesting in the first verse, which is a revolutionary thought of the Rebbe and how the Rebbe lived his life in day-to-day life. And it's amazing that he taught us this, and then we saw it in reality. The first verse says, V'haya ki tavo al haaretz. Moses tells the Jewish people, it will be when you will come to the land that God gives you, v'yirishta v'yashafta ba, and you will inherit it, you will conquer it, and you will dwell in it. Now, every word is a nuance in the Torah, as I've told you many times. And the question that rabbis ask is, why does Moses have to tell the Jews who are in the desert, it will be when you will come to the land that God gives you, and you will dwell, you will inherit it, you will conquer it, and you will settle there. Then you will bring the first fruit. Obviously, you can't bring the fruit till you conquer it and settle on the land. It's an obvious thing. What's Moses saying? And we know every word is nuanced in the Torah. So what's the message here? You see, when the Jews came to Israel, it took them 7 years to conquer the land. And then it took them another 7 years to settle everyone. So that's 14 years. Now imagine this. Imagine you conquered the land after 7 years, right? And then you were from the first people that settled. So in year 1 of the settling, you settled. There's another 6 years to go. So you would have thought that, hey, Moses is telling the Jews when they're in the desert, when you come to the land of Israel, you get into you conquer it, you get your portion, you build yourself a little house, you start planting right away. You take your first fruit and bring it to the temple to say thank you to God for the happiness He has given you. But Rashi right away says, no. Moses is telling them something very important here. That the Jews were not obligated to bring gratitude for their happiness until all the Jews were settled. Until after 14 full years. That means they fought for 7 years, they conquered the land, and then for the 7 years when they were slowly settling the people, no one brought the bikurim, the gifts of gratitude, to the holy temple until everyone was settled. Okay, fine, that's what Rashi tells us, but what's the message? And this is where the Rebbe comes in with a beautiful thought. The Rebbe says like this: the Torah is teaching us the most important lesson. A Jew can't be truly happy and bring gratitude to God when he has a brother, when he has a sister, when she has a brother or a sister that hasn't yet settled, that doesn't have their part of the land. How could you come to God and say, V'samachta b'chol ha'tov, I'm rejoicing in all the good I have, when there's someone else, when there's a brother, when there's an uncle, when there's an aunt, when there's a friend, when there's another community that hasn't been settled yet? So Moses is telling the Jews in the desert, before they even go to Israel, listen, you're going to come to the land of Israel. You're going to settle. You should know that your obligation only starts when everyone is settled. Moses is teaching them an important lesson, not just for then, but for always. The Jewish people are one unit. The community is one. And if someone's not settled, if someone doesn't have their portion in the land, then you can't have true happiness. True happiness only comes when everyone is happy, when everyone has what they need. It's such a powerful lesson, and it's something that I learned from my dear Rebbe throughout my life. The Rebbe taught us the idea of unity, of community, the idea that we're all one, and the idea that there can't be true happiness if not everyone's settled. You look around America today. Someone told me this terrible poll that back in the 80s they took, where they asked people how likely would they be upset if their children married someone from the other political party, if they were Democrat or Republican. And 80 or 90% said no, they wouldn't care. And they took the same poll now, and only 10% said that they wouldn't be upset. The rest said they wouldn't want it, and they would be upset or they would fight it. And I thought to myself, listen to the message Moses is telling us. We're one. We're one unit. How could we be so split to the sense we don't even want to marry into another family? True happiness only comes when everyone's happy. True happiness only comes when you recognize and listen to the other person, when you worry about them too, when you don't see them as your enemy, but you see them as your partner. And Moses, in his infinite wisdom in the Torah, tells the Jewish people sitting in the desert when life was still good, there was no worry about struggle, about fighting for a living and where you're going to live and whose property it is. They just travel as one community. He says, listen, the day's going to come, you're going to come to Israel. Everyone's going to have their own property. Everyone's going to have their own inheritance. This is for this poor, for this tribe, for that tribe, for this family, for that family. And it could be that then you're going to have to make a living and you're going to have to plant your own field and your vineyards. And you might think, oh, as long as I have what I have, I'm set. Says the Torah, oh no. You can't be happy until everyone has it. And that was the message. I think it's an important message that Rebbe taught us, and it's something we should think about in our day-to-day life. Have a great day. I hope your kids are going to school, and if not, I hope you're finding them some online schooling, and God willing, sooner than later we'll get back to some normalcy.